Welcome everyone to our webinar today, Rapid Red Teaming and Continuous Pen Testing, a technical how-to on running offensive security with StrikeKit. In a minute, I will introduce Jonathan, who's going to be talking to us today and doing a demo, which we're very excited to see. But first of all, just some quick intros. My name is Richard Delahaye, and I'm going to be moderating today. If you just go to the next slide, please, Jonathan. Thank you. I have a few housekeeping items. So if you have any questions, please submit them via the Q&A interface in your Zoom window. We will be recording this session, and a recording will be available to all registrants and attendees. So you can look out for that. Should be heading your way tomorrow. And then I would also encourage you, if you want to see or if you want to have your own one-to-one session to find out more about anything that you see today, then you can request a demo on strike48.com at the link provided, and I'll put that in the chat as well for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Tomek, VP of Product here at Strike48. Take it away, Jonathan.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Tomek, and my background is in threat intelligence primarily. I've worked with many large companies in the past, doing a lot of different types of engagements from red team, blue team, purple team, all of the fun teams, to tracking APT groups, to hacking, to running a hacker conference, all the fun things. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background. So if you want to ask any really technical questions, you're more than welcome to. Um, so to go through today, we're going to be talking about StrikeKit, well, more of our red team product here for Prospector Studio, and effectively how it all works, as well as walking through both a live exercise as well as showing you some of the things I've done in the past, and also just uh, have a fun conversation if there's any good questions. All right. So let's begin. All right. So going into how red teams all operate, at least in the traditional sense, there are many, many types of tools that we all need to do during, and I'm using red team very particularly because it's not just vulnerability assessments, it's not just penetration tests, it's large engagements. This includes how do we plan it? Who do we talk to? What do we need to do to execute it? What tools do we need to leverage? How do we write the documentation? Who do we need to have? Who needs to have access? Things like that. It's fairly disconnected, though the process is very well defined. I mean, we've been doing it for many years. The challenge still comes that each company has their own routine way of doing things. So how do we kind of combine some of that together? Like we need to have a nice little flow of data to make it a bit easier because as we keep expanding, as there's new tools that keep coming out, it's gotten a lot more complicated to maintain, especially by bringing in junior pen testers or vulnerability assessors or just people that need to figure out how the systems all work just because there's so many. Um, Now, as we keep going forward, the engagement time is really long. I mean, it can be a matter, I wish it was like hours and days, but sometimes they can be weeks or months, depending upon the type of engagement themselves. And then we also have to do them each year, especially around compliance. So this is always an ongoing system. They're very point in time from here's what's going on right now. There are tools that exist that will do this on an ongoing basis. But when it comes to a large, broad uh, type of engagement, they're not really on like happening all the time. They're very, very manual and they'll take weeks, especially for like a SOC 2 compliance type engagement. Then once that's done, you're going to have to do it again, which is the case because it is compliance, but the data that you previously had was stale. So now we have to redo it, figure out what we had to do, what was fixed, what wasn't fixed, etc. Um, and then you'll also have new systems that come online, misconfigurations, all the fun things as we know how businesses all operate, and new CVEs that come out, new vulnerabilities. So no matter what, there's always going to be a gap there. I wish there was a good silver bullet for everything, but it's still, how do we get around this problem? And by the way, if there's any questions, please ask, and Richard will not interrupt me, but at the end of the slide, I'll get to them because I always like to make sure there's always dialogue so that I can address any questions as we're going through it. So as red team exercises, as vulnerability assessments are always done, or just the latest and greatest release of a CVE, like a 10.0 tomorrow, we'll all lose a Friday. We'll sometimes lose weekends. We'll sometimes have to work till 2 in the morning, and it's never fun. But at the same time, what can we do to be able to address a lot of those issues to make sure that uh, we're keeping high integrity with keeping the right personnel on staff so that they're able to at least be happy, healthy with that work-life balance, as well as showing that we have a full audit, that there's nothing that was missed, and that we're still able to get junior operators up to speed. Um, Not only that, but then once you obtain the final report, how do you make it actually actionable in a way that others can, whether within the company, be able to leverage it so that there's nothing lost in translation? So this is where we bring in StrikeKit. It is basically a orchestration unit for doing red team type exercises that contains over 200 or what 2,500 different offensive tools, um, all very like best in grade, all open source stuff. That the whole goal was to integrate, not make our own, because we want to integrate to make sure that you are being able to use the tools that you have trusted and grown accustomed to, but be able to work together to be able to do the entire full kill chain, do your scanning, do your testings, do your web app analysis, just so that in one session that you're able to set it up, stage it, and then basically let it run itself. And there are a lot of tools that are out there, but the goal here is to make it a lot easier for everyone to be able to operate in an effective way. So what I'm going to do is now go through just a couple phases, just so that you have an idea of the demo of what StrikeKit is, as well as how it works on the back end. And so I do predict there will be some questions, but let's jump on in. So I want to show you how to first set up an engagement and basically just give you an idea of how simple it is for someone that, with the basic requirements, is able to then create their engagement to then proceed, whether it's a vulnerability test or a web app test, whatever that is, but wanted to make it a little bit easier. So let's show you StrikeKit. So StrikeKit is built on top of Prospector Studio. If you're unfamiliar with that, that's for a whole nother session, but that is basically our core platform that lets all of the things that are built within it to be able to integrate within every other app that's also built in, and all of our AI that is built on the back end. So StrikeKit is right here. Obviously, you've got all your fun little settings that you can, and there will be more available soon, but change even your little dark mode, light mode, because that's always the number one feature. But we'll start with one of our first engagements here. So to start, you always pick a template. The templates, you can create your own, or start with some of our own. And effectively, what they're going to do is set you up to be able to do the red team exercise that you may need to do. Um, this includes being able to import additional exterior reports so that you could kind of mimic how an attacker leverages it. You could do it how you want to, or just run traditional type exercises. So I'll just go through and let's just say assumed breach. We'll just type. Just give it a little quick name. I'm just doing this just to show you because I have a couple set up already, and you can still adjust as you go. Um, find where it all began. And as you go through each template, there's actually on the back end, a whole tree, a hierarchy of different types of questions and objectives that are pulled so that we have actual determinism. Like I want to make sure that it's not going to be random every time, but you'll be able to suggest which objectives that you want as you go through so that to complete the engagement that you may need. So if there's more, these are just four examples. Um, you may be able to add them. You be able to say like they may be opportunistic, they're secondary, they're not really part of the core engagement. You may add them as you see fit. Compromise the domain controller. So I'll just add that just to show you. Now, as we go through, you will always want to set your in scope. Now, something really, really essential about StrikeKit is, as I was mentioning, this is the top level. This is this orchestrator. It's the general contractor. It is ensuring the integrity of what is going to happen. With all the AI that exists out there right now and how often it will make mistakes, um, we wanted to ensure that everything is trusted, that it will not break out of its guardrails. So when you say something is in scope, it will be in scope. If it's out of scope, it will skip through that. That was built core first. We wanted to ensure that it's not just going to run and break guardrails. You got to trust your tools. If you can't, then why use them? So we'll just do a small network, even though that's not the right range. We'll add that there. We'll add an out of scope so you can see just an example. So you can add whatever you want. It will ensure when it's out of scope that if it finds it in the data, that it will ignore it on purpose. So even though I put it as a complete, this is Cloudflare's DNS, it's not really relevant, but the idea behind it is if it is found, so if there is something that's leading to an additional source internally that may be in scope at the time, it will then still read the out of scope to ensure it avoids touching that system or host, rather. This includes activity categories that you may or may not want. So as you can see here, you can say that, hey, I actually want to have to know the impact of what's going to be happening, or it's a secondary type goal there, or do not give me any reconnaissance for this type of engagement. There's a lot of inbounds and a lot of out of bounds that you are able to set, and that's part of the templates, but it's giving you full control of what is going to be happening throughout the entirety of the system. This includes blackout periods to ensure that if you're letting this run, it will not uh, work between those windows. It'll wait. So that is a core feature of any type of vulnerability scans or penetration tests, etc., just red team engagements, as well as scope notes and if it will change over time. And part of this is as we all want to have autonomous tools as well as we want to have autonomous vulnerability scans, you could run them over and over and over again. So immutable would make sure that nothing will change, that the way it's preset, it will operate only as intended. Um, Mutable will give you the ability to, as you are running your engagement, that if something is found that you didn't even intend for it to find, do you want to pursue it? It will let you know and say, hey, this is something else you might want to add to your uh, engagement. You can do that. That's the difference between mutable and immutable in this case. Rules of engagement, really core function of any testing. How do you want to be? Do you want to be stealth? Do you want to be more of a normal mode for scanning or aggressive? This would basically, as you're doing a test, how are you working with a blue team? Are you affecting them in any way that you want to make sure that you are hitting them and you're setting off triggers in the SIM and logs or in the network? This gives you a lot of flexibility. Same thing goes with operating mode. Do you want this to be more manual, more guided, or autonomous? And the reason for this was to, one, allow you to build trust in the system, but two, also enable more junior uh, red teamers to then start learning how the operations goes, what it does, as well as to make sure that if you wanted to along the way, you're like, hey, I found all these things, I can keep pivoting through it. It'll all let you know as you keep going. Same thing goes for escalation when it comes to um, the scope or when it comes to uh, any kind of discoveries that you're like, wait a minute, this is both, it may be on the bounds of both inbounds and out of bounds. That's where this escalation comes from. Additionally, which prohibited actions that you may need or don't want to have when it comes to like you don't want to have physical attacks, though that's something that's not necessarily built in this tool yet, but there are certain features that I'll explain to you later about where some of this comes into play. Um, but same thing goes for, can this system even develop ransomware as it deploys it? There's a whole lot of different functions that the core has that may be able to want to deny or allow. And additional notes that you'd want, especially when it comes to reports, and finally, success criteria to make sure that you've achieved the final goal. And once you are done, it lets you review, and then you can create your engagement. Ta-da. So I know that was quite a lot right there, but I wanted to just at least show you how simple it was to at least create your first engagement. And okay, can I go back to slideshow? I'm sorry, Zoom. Why did it do that? There we go. Okay. So I hit all of those. Next is now I've already run demos, I've already run some in the past, so I'm going to kind of go through a little bit about what the live engagements all entail, just show you the things that it's found, how it works, things that it will guide, it will guard, it'll ask for approval, just like all AI is out there. Um, and then also some of the things that the platform now has. So a core function also is everything that happens through the engagement is audited. This is crucial so that you now know how to go back to where you were to say, this is where something either A may have strayed, or B, you needed to ensure that this action actually did happen or took place. Because sometimes, and I'm not going to say a lot of places have done this, but there's been times where during a red team or a vulnerability assessment that some things just magically appear and nobody really remembers how they got there. This system ensures that integrity because that is a crucial element to making you trust any system. Okay, go back. I'll just go through. So I had one of the quick tests that I ran in here. Can I go? So once you create your uh, engagement, it will say, and it'll ensure that you've had your whole pre-planned checklist and say, oh, hey, I've got everything I need. If it's missing something, it'll let you know. Some things are optional. And then you create the engagement. It'll go through, start doing its thing. And this is taking everything that you've done, and now it's preparing the actual engagement itself so that you're able to now know what it needs to do, how it's going to do it, as well as if you want to change anything after it's completed its initial plan. So you can see it's going through, gives you its 5-phase overview. And in this case, this is the attack path. If we wanted to, we can also change it up where this is, say, a web app. It will then readjust based upon how focused you want to be able to make the engagement. And it will modify the actual objectives. Kind of a lot of fun stuff here. I'm just running this is all local right here, but just to show you a quick demo as I execute it. But it basically will then create each and every objective. Once it finishes, there it goes. So it'll say, here's what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. So you now know if I wanted to change anything, I can, and I can edit it. But it also lets you know which tools it's going to be using, which are really important. You could say, you know what, I don't want to use Link Finder. Maybe I want to use something else. Maybe I want to use a tool that we internally have because there are a lot of vendor tools out there. So you can then be able to integrate with those. That's a core function that I really wanted to do because I want to work with people, less us be the only thing because integration is really important to me. Um, then we will then kick it off and execute. And so as it goes, it's going to now start doing its work. Now I'm going to let that go in the background so that I can just show you what a final thing actually looks like because I want to save your time. Actually, did I go into that here? That's the deliverables. Oh, so I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. So once everything is complete, once the plan, the execution phase is actually all done, you can see and review what it did, how it did it throughout the phases. You can actually, as I was bringing back up the full audit, it will show you every little piece of the results. And this is quite long, so I won't go too much in depth on that, but I wanted you to know that it exists there. Um, and so then it will actually even create the final report for you. It'll show the target that it was after. In this case, I was running Damn Vulnerable web app. It'll show the actual credentials that were able to be extracted during its testing. These were the ones that it found. Um, Go to activities. This is both similar to the audit, but it's actually showing what tools were launched, what it did in each part of the phase, what it belonged to from engagement to which what it was doing, why it was doing it, etc. And for each step, the findings that it found, which would be critical ones, as well as just more arbitrary high, medium, low, all of the ones that are necessarily tied to the MITRE attack framework, which is a very important thing to tie them to this so that you can then have it for the reports and know exactly which techniques and things that were completed. Same thing goes for the kill chain to show where it started in the phase, how it got there, and completed it from reconnaissance all the way through post-exploitation, including which of the objectives were completed as it was going through the engagement. If something was, you're like, you know what, I don't really need the secondary one, I could click it off and mark it as achieved. And then boom, it is done, which just in case somebody needed to look at it, all the fun. Blockers. Now, this is a really fun one because along the way, as you're running any engagement, and I didn't have any here because I was running local, uh, if say, a endpoint system, or say there was some firewall that blocked you along the way as it was going through the tests, StrikeKit will find that and let you know that there was a blocker and then try to one over circumvent it, which is important, or you could tell it not to, but it wants to show you that if your systems are working as intended. This was a critical part of how our system all worked was because everybody wants to know their systems are working, but also how is there another gap that I might have missed? So it's letting you see your entirety of what was good, what was bad, and hey, maybe for next time we don't even need to. We could take that out of scope or change it. I don't know. Um, Timeline, similar to the audit, was this is the I'm going to call it the dirtier view, right? The more specific types of view of each tool, how it worked, when it was run, how it was executed, and walking you through the what happened when, including any changes that you may have made. Checklists, I'm still debating if I would keep this, but this is more in line with the objectives, which is, hey, I wanted you to take this path. I wanted you to ensure that you found this user specifically. That's why it's kind of a fun little thing I got to figure out. And then finally, the infrastructure map as well. So this will be for when it finds any and all systems, how they are integrated and tied to. I know this isn't as pretty as I want it to be, but it will actually show you the path that it took to get to the final destinations and what those systems are, as well as making sure that you know this is, well, I'm going to say part of that kill chain, which is, hey, I got here. This is how I got to there, XYZ. Here's the domain controller, the systems I pivoted through, and the tools that were used. And finally, what everybody always wants is a report. So, um, part of this is there's many different types of reports that you always have to generate. And what's one thing that AI does extremely well? It's making sure that it can write. So, this was basically generated in order to make it so that you can then have a technical report written up based upon all of the findings. Oops, that's me timing out because I'm not clicking through. Um, sorry about that. Where did I go? Damn, vulnerable web app. So once you generate report, whether it's a compliance report, it does its thing really quickly. And you still can edit this. Everything is templatable so that if you have a specific format for your report, you may put that in here, as well as, like I said, edit anything you think that, hey, this was not written the way I want it to, or maybe I want to add a section or what have you. That's where this is. And there's always, if you have anything that you want to be changed, we're very open to modifying it in a way that makes it a lot easier for you to work with our system. I mean, we try to be as open as possible. Um, and as well as if you had a technical overview, etc. Now, a key feature to this whole system was not just, hey, I generated a report and I'm not just a vulnerability system. This already creates a file that is now able to be then pushed into our uh, SOC. So our whole automated SOC will then take this report, create an issue so somebody can then deal with, for example, hey, here's a couple critical findings after you've observed them, and then be able to actually close them off and make them actionable. We wanted to make sure that we're engaging with all of the systems, not just having a single one pane, like, well, not, I'm not saying one pane of glass, but have a single tool that just does, hey, great, here, you're another vulnerability assessment tool. We wanted to make it a lot easier for people to then deal with stuff on the fly. And this includes doing it autonomously as well. So if something is found, throw it into your ASOC so that somebody else can qualify it to see even if it's an issue and to deal with it right then and there. Um, okay, so I know I said a lot of things and I showed a bunch of different parts of this, but let me go back to the deck and what can I here? Okay, because there's parts that I didn't get to show yet. So this was, as I was mentioning, this is the main core function of StrikeKit, being able to go through and as you saw just a bit of the demo, um, the execution time frame is extremely rapid. And we wanted to take something that would have taken weeks down to days, if not hours, in a very functional, very deterministic way. And then show you how quick it was to even generate a report, as well as put that into an actionable sequence, as well as show you some of the uh, audit records so that you can say, hey, you know what? I trust the system. Somebody can go back and validate it, or hey, maybe I need to rerun it. Um, and that's what I kind of talked about here. Oh boy. Um, so, and please, if there's any questions, please let me know because I'm talking really.
Jonathan, yeah, I
Yes,
do have one question here.
please.
So we have a question. Are these tools open source?
So StrikeKit itself is not open source. However, part of the backend is. And I will show that to you at the end, if that's all right. I have plenty of stuff that I can show you. But so the core function, the main worker, as I mentioned, that StrikeKit is the general contractor. We have an open source system that we released called Pick. That is basically the guy that does all the dirty work, that does all of the fun testing that you can actually use right now if you so choose. So I'll go into that if that's all right.
Yeah, that
Uh,
sounds good. Sorry, Jonathan, we actually have another question.
oh, sure.
Um, how does other agentic AI pen tests, such as Claude, how are they different from this, apart from their integration into the SOC? So this attendee, Naveen, is saying, I can connect MCP server of my SIM into another agent.
Yes, and that is absolutely doable. So I'll say if you're going to do it that way, you're going to chew through many, many, many tokens because, as I was saying, that we wanted to be very sorry, I was saying deterministic before, non-deterministic. We want to make sure that the code that's run, it's the tools that are doing most of the work, not the AI, because AI will give you if you ask the AI a question, even including Claude, the same question 3 times, you're going to always get three different answers. We want to ensure that that is basically destroyed down to a minimum, where you ask the question 3 times that you come to the same conclusion with a very similar, very close answer. And the tools prevent the system from doing that. Um, we built our own special type of MCP backend, which will make things a lot more local as opposed to running through MCPs and chewing through all of those tokens. This is kicking off a lot more calls. This is doing a lot more orchestration and doing things in a way that has already been tried and tested in the past many times. Um, for example, like if you were to say, hey, I'm going to throw Claude at this vulnerability, yes, it's going to do that. But if you try to do that 3 different times, you're not going to necessarily have the same answer. It may also hallucinate. So those are things that we really wanted to have embedded in this platform is to reduce hallucinations, ensure you trust the integrity of this, and that you're doing things not just how we've always done them, but in a really rapid way, and that so you can completely trust it. Um, like I love Claude. I mean, that is a huge the Anthropic models are phenomenal. But when you use just tokens to do a lot of these types of this work, it's gonna chew through context like it's going out of style, especially when you have to scan entire infrastructures and maps of a network. Like Claude can't do that. Claude can't just say, "Hey, scan a whole /8." It's going to be very, very problematic. So that's something that we wanted to ensure that we're not doing, that it's baked and given bite size so that the AI knows how to work with it and be able to use the proper tools and attack.
Okay,
Hopefully,
that makes sense. Yeah. And actually, Naveen has just a follow-up question here, which is
Sure.
in an engagement, is there a danger that you'd run out of Strike48 tokens?
I've never run out of Strike48 tokens, but it will also, if you happen to, because we do offer a free form of the token usage, it will still pause during the engagement so that you can obtain more. So it's as much of a risk, it's not. Um, but that's also something for the sales team to deal with. I've never had that issue come up yet, so I don't think you'll have that problem. I mean, we're talking about a couple dollars worth of tokens as opposed to 50 a time or 1,000 a time, for example. So that could be better answered by somebody else, but I will still say that I don't think that's as big of an issue as it may sound. Any more questions? If not, I'll keep going.
We do have a handful of questions here. Why don't you carry on with the presentation and then we'll ask some more questions at the end.
Oh, sure. Okay, then I'll go through these pretty quickly then. So what we wanted to do with StrikeKit was not just be a vulnerability platform, not just penetration testing, like I was saying, an entire red team. And that's where we keep building out new, better functions as we keep going. So one of the core features that we have is the SOC validation, our agentic SOC. It will be able to work and plug in with those systems as well as so after an engagement, the red team can then create cases for a blue team to deal with, thus making us almost a purple team in a way, which, as you can see, is here on the far right, but also take stuff from the blue team to then validate it in the red team, handing off things back and forth. That was a core function that we wanted. That's why Prospector Studio is the core foundation of StrikeKit. it also will then go through and do post validation. So the other things that are not within here as well are we have a different product, the digital forensics incident response part to this that will then do other deeper investigations. Because as I was mentioning, I love threat intelligence and finding bad stuff. That's where both this part comes in as well as the threat intelligence driven data. So we also leverage uh, all and as much open source as we possibly can, but we hook into a lot of different RAG sources, including yours as well, to be able to then um, give you the most accurate built out data as possible so that as it pivots through the network, you can say, hey, I found this IP address. Oh, it's also infected with this, that, and the other. We wanted to make sure that this is flexible and then we integrate as much as possible as opposed to just being our own little tool. Not just being an MCP type integrator, but hey, what can we make token saving as well as the highest accuracy as possible? And then finally, the purple team merging things together. This kind of goes in hand with the SOC validation, but it is a way to then say, hey, I opened up the ticket, things are working, fantastic. Okay. Um, I'm just going to skip through this really quick because I want to make sure I can answer some more questions and also show you the back end of how StrikeKit does its work. Um, we're purposely trying to not reinvent how all engagements are done. We want to make it a lot easier as well as make things work very well together. Like I was saying, I want to make sure that we work with other tools. So if you had a preferred scanning type service, we want to integrate. We didn't want to just say, hey, you have to write your own. Hey, you don't just have to use Nmap. You can use anything that's out there. Um, but we wanted to make sure that things are also gated so that when you're going through this, that if something changes in the scope, as you're going through, you find something you want to keep expanding out, you can still do that. And it also you can have it auto approve or not. So that you are ensuring the highest trust in the system, that things aren't going off the guardrails, which is everybody's fear. Because you don't want it to just start attacking external sources, right? That was a core function to this. We wanted to make sure that as it goes through, things are much easier to deal with the findings, that you don't just have to manually link them because there's however many tools, it's all done within the core system. And then finally, how the reporting is done. Yes, there's always going to be some manual element to this because you have to kind of tune it, but we wanted to make it a lot more simplistic for the user to be able to say, hey, I've got a quick report, let's go pump it out. Um, make things a lot easier for everyone. Okay, so before I go to the final slide, uh, the end, I wanted to show you we have the thing that does a lot of the heavy lifting in the back end. And this is some of the open source tool. So pick, which is what you're seeing here, is what integrates with StrikeKit. StrikeKit leverages this in order to do all of its work. This is what we produced as an open source tool. Lets you figure out what tools you may want, may need, baked in CyberChef, the files you may find, shell access to your box. It's an agentic form of leveraging the systems that you have. So we leveraged BlackArch as opposed to Kali, but we were going to consider adding it. But BlackArch already has all the tools. Um, it's already baked in. You could run it in a prudent mode, which uses BlackArch or in native. So you have access to a plethora of open source tools that are out there or ones that you wanted to install and then um, do your engagements from Wi-Fi to any type, adding additional adapters to including Bluetooth type things, anything that is attached to the system, it's run in a non-MCP way to make sure that you're saving on tokens and things don't just hallucinate. Um, as well as additional seeded tools that are out there. So if you needed to do this, whether or not locally on a host or on a mobile device, you can. The idea for this was wherever pick is running, that is where you can then that's where StrikeKit will start from. If you run this from the cloud, you're doing it from an external view. If you're doing it from a laptop and you're going to go into a client site, you're leveraging it that way and still being able to run pick. If you're going to be on a mobile device, as I always say, like there's a pizza guy attack where you walk in to an organization and people trust you, and you drop your phone off, what could you do? So pick runs there and it integrates with StrikeKit. So you can say, here's how the attack's going to go, do your work. So as soon as the phone would be put down, it can do all of these types of engagements. And of course, as everybody uses their red team, like the agents, we have it here so that you can continue to chat through it and do all of your types of attacks. We did add a few quick action buttons and safety checks just so that um, for the more basic users, that's the reason we wanted to open source it to make it a lot easier for people to just like dig in, play with the tool, see how it all works, and have some fun. So yeah, with that, I know I covered a lot in a very, very short amount of time. Um, I just wanted to complete that demo so I can have plenty of time for questions. So if anybody has any, by all means.
Yes, Jonathan, we have a good number of questions here. We did promise that this would be a 45-minute webinar, so we may not get to all of them, but let's see how
Mhm.
many we can get through here. First one, you mentioned that StrikeKit is open source. So where can you get it? Where can you find it?
Yes, I apologize. I should have mentioned that. So here at the bottom here, the link, the labs, let me see if I can click on that. This is where you can go through and see the tools that we have. So under Red Team and Pen Testing, you can see a little bit about what the systems are, how to use it to make it easier and pick. I do have here on our GitHub repo, our public one, you could download and install pick, how it works, if you want to fork it, add comments, things. I like to be open with everybody. That's why we have it this way. So if you want to open up issues or just email me directly, you're welcome to. But yeah, you can go through the labs Strike48 site and access all of our stuff. The easiest way, if you really want to get going, is just use what's called Strike Hub. It's for lack of a better word, our web store for our tools. So it's got Kube Studio and other tools that you can leverage. But that's the first one you can start with if you wanted to use any of our open source tools.
All right, excellent. And then I think another question here from a Strike48 user. Can I create personas inside StrikeKit similar to Strike48 so that different personas can interact and produce reports?
Absolutely. So when you have access to StrikeKit, you have access to Prospector Studio, which is here. So you would simply just get to create your persona. And that's a whole nother topic, but I'd be happy to explain it. We have a persona, an agent creator that lets you do all of the functions that you may want, down to the nitty-gritty of what tools that it can access, what knowledge bases it needs, a lot of the features that I would say, traditionally see in like even Claude, but goes well above and beyond. We have a lot of that. So yes, you can create your own agents and interact with them.
All right, excellent. And I think we have time for just one more question here. And that is, you mentioned guardrails
Mhm.
and how important trust is. Can you just talk a little bit more about that, seeing as we're using AI here?
Absolutely. So the guardrails were baked into the system so that their AI is more of the overarching plugin that the system itself has. Like if a tool runs, AI can't control that. The tool, that's why we wanted to leverage the known gold standard for how red team engagements all work. That Claude, for example, may have guards that are within the prompt, but it will hallucinate if it gets to a high context window and start actually violating its own rules. We wanted to ensure that would never happen. So part of this is, other than having gates, we have the system's backend leverage the tools and know what it has the ability to plug into. I'm going to say some of that is also secret sauce because of how Prospector Studio works. But the whole idea was to ensure that everything is gated throughout from the top down, and it self-checks and self-corrects to make sure that it's not going to just even scan an IP address without checking itself first. It's not going to go do an action without knowing. It lets us keep our context windows small, and it lets it be very, very trustworthy, as I was saying before. Hopefully that answers that question.
All right, excellent. Yes, thank you. Do you mind actually, Jonathan, just bringing back the PowerPoint slide here, just so that
Absolutely.
everybody can see the QR code in case you want to snap that. I can see you got the labs link there as well, which is excellent. Um, but that's all we have time for. So I do know I didn't get to all the questions. We'll make sure that we follow up with everybody who asked questions here on the webinar. But it just remains for me to say thank you, Jonathan. I learned a lot. Thank you for sharing your expertise and great demo of StrikeKit. And thank you everybody for joining us. And
Thank you.
wish everybody a great day.
And reach out if you have anything more, please. I really would love to talk with you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.